He collapsed in the rain, mud-soaked, silent and forgotten. She gave him shelter, never knowing he was the billionaire's disgraced son, hiding from scandal, betrayal, and a secret that could burn everything down. But when her world is threatened, his true identity explodes into the light. Don't blink, this story twists hard. The sky hung heavy with rain, the kind that seeps into your bones and makes everything feel colder than it really is. Emily Hart stepped off the sidewalk, her boots splashing through a shallow puddle. She tugged her hood tighter, clutching the brown paper bag of groceries to her chest. The wind carried a sharp edge, and downtown was nearly empty, just the usual hum of traffic in the distance and the soft patter of drizzle on pavement. Then she saw him, slumped on a worn bench near the bus stop. Wet. Still. A young man, early 30s maybe. His clothes were ragged, his hair matted from the rain. One shoe untied, the other torn. He wasn't moving much, just a shallow rise in his chest, like someone holding on by instinct more than will. Emily paused. Her fingers gripped the grocery bag tighter. She glanced around. No one else seemed to notice. No one else seemed to care. She took a slow step forward. "Hey," she said softly, voice gentle but clear. "Are you okay?" The man didn't answer right away. His eyes fluttered open, gray and distant, like they'd seen something too heavy to speak of. He looked at her, then quickly away as if ashamed. "I'm fine," he muttered, barely audible. "Just tired." Emily hesitated. She wasn't naive. Life had taught her caution. But something about his voice, how carefully he tried to sound indifferent, how his fingers trembled as he hugged his soaked coat closer, felt more like heartbreak than danger. "You hungry?" she asked. "I've got a peanut butter sandwich and a bottle of water in here somewhere." He looked up again. This time, his expression cracked just a little. "Seriously?" Emily smiled faintly. "Seriously." She handed him the sandwich, unwrapped. His hand shook as he took it. No thank you, no long speech, just silence and the soft sound of him chewing like it was the first real food he'd had in days. Emily knelt beside the bench now, ignoring the wet sidewalk beneath her knees. "My name's Emily," she said, watching him closely. He paused, wiped his mouth, and finally nodded. "Jack." "Nice to meet you, Jack." He gave a small nod again, then looked away like he wanted to disappear. And in that moment, neither of them knew what had just begun. She thought she was helping a stranger survive the night, but she had just stepped into the middle of a secret life, a shattered legacy, and a buried war between power and conscience. A man running from a billionaire name and a woman who'd never stopped fighting for what mattered. The next morning brought a dull, sleepy sunrise, the kind that barely warmed the rooftops. Emily unlocked the side door of the town library with a soft click, the same way she had for the past 6 years. Her hands, still a little raw from the cold, lingered on the knob as she glanced back over her shoulder. Jack had spent the night at the shelter down the street, thanks to her quiet nudge to a volunteer named Ray. No paperwork, no fuss, just a warm cot and a second sandwich. She told herself that was enough, that maybe he'd move on, but her chest still felt tight. Inside the library, she moved like she always did, routine, quiet, thoughtful. The place smelled like old paper and lemon oil, and the morning sun cast golden stripes across the floor. She set up the reading corner, wiped the dust off the checkout counter, and rest-hacked the donated books. But her mind wasn't on the job. Not fully. Around mid-morning, the front door creaked open, and there he was, Jack, cleaned up just slightly, hair damp from a quick rinse, wearing the same clothes from yesterday, just a little less soaked. Emily blinked in surprise. "Hey," she said, her voice softer than she expected. He gave a small nod. "They said this place was quiet. Hope you don't mind." She motioned toward a chair near the window. "You're welcome to sit. It's warmer in here than out there." Jack settled in without a word. She noticed how he didn't quite relax, shoulders still stiff, eyes scanning the room like he was waiting for someone to tell him to leave. After a while, she brought over a cup of tea in a mismatched mug. "Hope you like ginger," she said. He stared at it for a second, then gave the faintest smile. "I don't remember the last time someone handed me a cup without expecting something." Emily shrugged, trying to play it casual. Guess I'm not most people. He looked at her, then really looked. His gaze wasn't just tired anymore. It was curious, grateful, maybe even confused. Why are you doing this? He asked quietly. She paused, thought about it. Because I've needed help before, she answered. And someone was kind to me when I didn't deserve it. Jack didn't say anything after that, but he didn't leave either. Later that afternoon, he helped her reshelve some books. No one asked him to. He just did. Their hands bumped once while reaching for the same copy of To Kill a Mockingbird. She laughed. He almost did. Something unspoken was beginning to settle between them. Not romance. Not yet. Just trust. The fragile kind that comes quietly and matters more than either of them could understand. 2 weeks passed, and Jack kept showing up. Not every day, but often enough that people started to notice the quiet stranger who helped fix the broken railing by the front steps or carried boxes of books without being asked. Emily never explained who he was. She just smiled and said he's a friend. And Jack, he started to look a little less lost. He didn't talk much, but he listened. Closely. To Emily. To the kids at Story Hour. To the old man who came in every Thursday just to read the classifieds out loud. For the first time in a long time, Jack Caldwell wasn't thinking about how to run. He was starting to wonder what it might feel like to stay. But peace doesn't last long in places like this. One afternoon, Emily sat behind the counter sorting through overdue slips when a thin, sharply dressed man walked in. He handed her a packet. She frowned. What's this? The man gave her a tight smile. Notice of acquisition. Effective immediately. This property is under review for redevelopment by Caldwell Holdings. Her blood ran cold. Redevelopment. Yes, ma'am. The town council's in talks. Most buildings on this block are expected to be bought out within the quarter. He tapped the packet, gave her a polite nod, and walked out without another word. Emily stood frozen. The name Caldwell echoed in her head, but she didn't connect it to Jack. Why would she? Instead, she walked out to the sidewalk, jaw tight, heart pounding. Jack was repainting the fence with an old brush. When he saw her expression, he dropped the handle. Emily? What happened? She held up the papers. The library's being bought out. Jack stepped closer, reading the header. His face paled. He knew that logo. He knew it too well. That night, Emily stayed late at the library. She made calls, wrote emails, even printed out flyers that read, "Save our library." Community meeting Friday. Jack sat quietly across from her, watching her work with determined fire in her eyes. "You don't give up easy, do you?" he said softly. She glanced up. "If we don't fight for this place, who will?" Jack opened his mouth, then closed it. He wanted to tell her that he might be part of what she was fighting against, that his last name was on the building plans threatening her home. But he didn't. Instead, he said, "Then I'll help you." She smiled. "Thank you, Jack." And he hated how much he meant it, because the truth wasn't just inconvenient now. It was dangerous. The days that followed were filled with quiet chaos. Emily's flyers spread fast. The local cafe taped one to their window. The high school English teacher offered to speak at the meeting. Even the grocery store let her pin one near the register. People cared, because Emily had always cared for them. Now it was their turn. And Jack? He was everywhere. Fixing a broken shelf in the reading room. Helping a group of teens repaint the back wall. Carrying a donation box across town in the rain. He never complained. But Emily noticed the shadows under his eyes. The way he flinched whenever someone mentioned Caldwell Holdings. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the library lights glowed soft and golden, Jack found Emily sitting on the floor between two shelves, sorting a box of old photographs. "Need help?" he asked. She looked up, surprised but smiling. "Always." He dropped to the floor beside her. They sifted through photos, kids in Halloween costumes, summer reading challenges, a black and white snapshot of Emily as a teenager holding a paintbrush. "That one was the first mural I ever helped design," she said, brushing off the dust. "I was so scared of messing up." Jack tilted his head. "You? Scared?" She laughed gently. "All the time. Still am. I just don't show it much." He looked at her, not speaking for a moment, then asked quietly, "Why this place? Why fight so hard for it? Emily's gaze lingered on the photo in her hand. My mom used to bring me here after her shifts. She'd fall asleep in the chair while I read. This place, it was safe. When she passed, I didn't know where I belonged. But the library didn't forget me. So now I don't forget it. Jack didn't answer. Not right away. Then he said, "What if the fight gets ugly? What if someone you trusted let you down?" Her smile faded slightly. Then I'd want to know why. He looked away, hands clenched around a photo of children in Halloween masks. Later that night, Jack stood outside the library alone, rain starting to fall again. He pulled out his phone. One missed call from his father, from the Caldwell legal team. All ignored. His last name still had power, and it was powering the very thing trying to erase everything Emily had built. Jack knew he couldn't hide forever. But he also knew, if Emily found out who he really was, he might lose the one person who saw him as more than a scandal. So he kept his secret, and it twisted deeper in his chest every time she smiled at him like he was worth something. The town hall meeting was packed. Mothers with strollers, retired couples in folding chairs, teenagers holding hand-drawn signs that read, "Books, not condos." Emily stood at the front, shoulders tense, papers in hand. Jack stood off to the side, behind the crowd, eyes scanning every face, like a soldier waiting for the first blow. She spoke clearly, her voice steady. "This library isn't just walls and shelves. It's where our stories began, where we built community, and we won't let some faceless corporation take that away." Applause, whistles, cheers. Then the mayor took the mic, smoothing his tie. "We hear your concerns, Ms. Hart. But as of today, the deal with Caldwell Holdings has already entered phase 2. The development is irreversible." Emily froze. "What?" The mayor cleared his throat. "The signed authorization came in months ago, by Jackson Caldwell III. It's in the contract." The name hit the room like thunder. A hush fell. Emily blinked. Jackson. Caldwell. Then her eyes moved across the room, to Jack, who hadn't moved. Only now, she saw him differently. He didn't look shocked or confused. He looked ashamed. "Jack," her voice cracked. "You." He stepped forward. Every footfall felt like a confession. "I didn't know the deal was still active," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I left. I tried to walk away from all of it. But my name, it still had weight. It was used without my consent." Murmurs erupted in the room. Jack's voice wavered, but he didn't back down. "I was born into that empire, and I hated what it became. My father, he doesn't ask questions. He just builds and destroys." He looked at Emily. "I left that world because it nearly broke me, but I never wanted it to break you." Emily stood completely still. Her mouth opened, then closed. Her eyes shimmered, full of disbelief and something else. Hurt. After the meeting, the crowd filtered out into the night, angry and confused. Jack stayed behind, alone near the podium. Emily finally approached. "You lied to me," she said, voice low. "I didn't lie," he whispered. "I just couldn't tell you. I didn't know how. You were him this whole time." Her voice broke. "The son of the man trying to erase everything we fought for. I didn't choose that name, Emily, but I am choosing what I do with it now." She looked at him for a long, aching second. Then she turned and walked away. And Jack stood in the echo of that silence, knowing his secret had finally come undone. The next day, the town buzzed with rumors. Whispers of betrayal, of hidden truths, of that man Emily had trusted, the one who turned out to be a Caldwell. Jack didn't show up at the library. Emily didn't look for him. Not because she didn't want to, but because her heart didn't know what to feel. Was it anger? Was it disappointment? Or was it the deeper ache of believing in someone and not knowing if you still should? That evening, the town council gathered again for a final vote. The deal was set to pass. The paperwork was ironclad, and no one expected a twist, until Jack walked in, not in work boots and torn sleeves this time, but in a navy coat he hadn't worn since the day he left his family behind. He stood tall, calm, but his eyes still carried that same storm. The council paused. The mayor squinted. "Jack. Caldwell." He nodded. "I'm here to make a statement," Jack said, pulling out a folder from his coat, and to revoke the authority tied to my name. Gasps. This deal was built on forged timing and a signature tied to assets I no longer control. I have evidence here, emails, timestamps, legal counsel reports, that show this acquisition moved forward without my active consent. A hush fell over the room. One councilwoman leaned forward. Why now? Why speak up? Jack's voice softened. Because someone reminded me that power means nothing if you don't use it to protect what matters. He turned, locking eyes with Emily, who had just entered the back of the room, frozen in place. She gave me a second chance when I didn't deserve it, Jack said. She believed in me before I remembered how to believe in myself. And I'm not going to let my silence take this place from her, or from any of you. He handed the folder to the board, then stepped back. The room broke into murmurs, some skeptical, many moved. One council member clapped, then another. Then the crowd followed. Emily stood still, eyes wide, heart louder than the noise around her. He'd chosen, not to run, not to hide, but to stand for her, for the town, for himself. Outside the meeting hall, as the wind rustled the leaves around them, Emily found him near the entrance, hands in his coat pockets, staring at the sky like it held all the answers he still didn't have. She stepped beside him. You didn't have to do that, she said quietly. Jack glanced over. I did. Silence lingered between them. Then she smiled, small, uncertain, but real. Maybe we start over, she said. Jack nodded. Yeah, I'd like that. 2 weeks later, the library reopened, stronger than ever. The redevelopment deal had officially collapsed, thanks to Jack's public testimony and the legal firestorm that followed. Caldwell Holdings backed off, and the town reclaimed its heartbeat. But something else had changed, too. The people didn't just save the library. They remembered it. More volunteers signed up. Kids returned in waves. Retired teachers brought cookies and hosted afternoon readings. It became a home again because someone had reminded them how fragile it really was. Emily stood at the front desk that morning, watching sunlight pour across the worn wooden floor. The air smelled like fresh paint and cinnamon tea. And there, crouched by the wall near the children's section, was Jack, holding a drill, securing a brand new plaque into place. She walked over slowly, watching as he tightened the final screw. The plaque read, "The Hart and Caldwell Community Library, a place built by kindness, protected by truth." He stood up, brushing dust from his hands. You really didn't have to put my name on it, he said, sheepish. Emily smiled, arms crossed. You earned it. Besides, it's alphabetical. They laughed. It wasn't awkward anymore. It was easy, comfortable, earned. Later that afternoon, they sat on the library steps, sharing a thermos of coffee, watching kids draw sidewalk chalk hearts and stars on the pavement. Jack's coat was gone, so was the fear in his eyes. He looked lighter now, not because everything had been fixed, but because he'd finally stopped running from his name, from his past, from himself. Emily leaned her shoulder gently against his. No more secrets, she asked. He shook his head. No more masks. She nodded. Good, because I like the version of you that doesn't need hiding. And so the story that began with a simple act of kindness didn't end with riches or grand revenge. It ended with something better. Truth, healing, and a second chance for a man who thought he'd lost everything, and a woman who believed he was worth saving, long before she knew his name.